Good morning, everyone. We are Group 10 and we're going to discuss the last topic for this course, which is Part 4, the review of curriculum. To begin, what are the things we should consider or look into when we are unpacking or reviewing a curriculum? Above everything else is the curriculum standards. So what do we mean by curriculum standards? These are broad statements of what students need to know and do as a result of learning. Meaning, these are broad statements of what knowledge the students need to acquire and master, the skills they need to do, and the values they need to develop while they are learning under the curriculum. Curriculum standards are widely used in the United States and in some other countries for their curriculum. As a matter of fact, in the K-12 curriculum standards are classified as content standards and performance standards. It also includes learning competencies. So content standards, performance standards, and learning competencies are essential for us to unpack or review a curriculum. So why do we have to unpack curriculum standards and competencies? Well, it is because it is essential in the selection of curriculum content, learning activities, and assessment tools. So for teachers like us to come up with an instructional plan that is grounded on the curriculum standards, we have to review the curriculum standards and competencies first. Unpacking curriculum is useful for teachers, again, in designing instructional plan and assessment tools. It serves as the guidelines for us to construct a instructional plan and practice and assessment that will support the learning and application of the expected knowledge, skills, and values on students. When we unpack curriculum standards and competencies, it includes several processes. First, classifying standards and competencies as knowledge, skills, and values. So we have to classify if it's about knowledge or if the standards is aiming for developing skill, etc. Second, identifying prerequisite knowledge, skills, and values for each competency. It is like identifying the supporting knowledge, skills, values for every competencies we have classified. Next, identifying appropriate activities and strategies. And last, classifying standards and competencies based on the types of assessment they require. So those assessments may be conventional testing or authentic tasks. Meaning, when we are unpacking curriculum standards and competencies, we have to look at the competencies and standards itself, at the activities and strategies that will help to model the standards, and also the assessment task, so that we can see what the curriculum is all about and what are the things that should be included within the curriculum. So for us to unpack curriculum standards and competencies effectively, we have to develop a strong pedagogical content knowledge or PCK. And also, we have to be aware of what is curriculum standards and its subdomains, which are content standards, performance standards, and learning competencies. Because if we are not aware of those things, we will have a hard time on reviewing and analyzing the curriculum. So after giving you a glimpse of what is curriculum standards and its subdomains, let's now move on to the main topic which is assigned to me, which is the content standards. Content standards is one of the classification of curriculum standards, and according to the Department of Education in its Memorandum Order Number 8 Series of 2015, content standards identify and set the essential knowledge and understanding that should be learned by the students.
Meaning, when we say content standards, it focuses on a specific content or extent of knowledge that is expected for learners to learn. And also, it articulates the core knowledge, values, concepts, or ideas that students need to acquire as the learning progresses.
So when we review the creative writing syllabus, here are the content standards we have infer. So first, the learners will be given opportunity to develop a creative outlet through additional writing experiences in fiction and non-fiction, and expands the students' writing standards. Second, the learners will understand imagery, diction, figures of speech, and variations on language. Third, the learners will understand poetry, fiction, and drama as genres and are able to analyze its elements and techniques. And last, the learners will understand the different orientations of creative writing. If you notice, the statements on their content standards are focusing on the understanding of the content or the set of knowledge included in that curriculum. Based on our matrix, the creative writing course is expecting that us as students will be able to expand our knowledge about creative writing and be familiarized with the different literary devices and genres under creative writing. Content standards encourage our thinking, our mental processes for us to grasp and understand and comprehend the knowledge, values, and concepts that the curriculum is offering us. To understand more content standards, we can view it as the cognitive domain in our instructional objectives. However, they are different because content standards are in general form while instructional objectives are in specific form, meaning content standards are applied in the totality of the curriculum while instructional objectives are certainly for a specific topic or lesson. But what I am trying to impose here is that content standards involves our cognitive processes like thinking, remembering, understanding, and comprehending. So again, when we say content standards, these are the specific content or knowledge that are expected the learners to master and acquire. Content standards focuses on the knowledge, and also content standards stimulates our cognitive processes. So that is the content standards. So my next group mate will discuss performance standards and learning competencies and the continuation of the presentation of the matrix we have done in the syllabus for creative writing. Thank you.
Next is the performance standards. As you can see in the table, the learners shall be able to: number 1, write various forms of creative articles; 2, enhance individuality in writing varied and original compositions; 3, develop own voice and style in the proofs of writing; and number 4, produce original journals and advertising and marketing materials with creative writing content. As you can notice in the examples in the table, performance standards describe the abilities and skills that the learners are expected to demonstrate in relation to the content standards and integration of 21st century skills. As the learner learns the content of the curriculum, they can now perform different tasks that includes develop, produce, write, or enhance their individual and group abilities in creative writing. In learning competencies, it refers to the knowledge, skills, and understanding that learners needs to demonstrate in every lesson or activity. As you can see in our table, we have that's about 34 learning competencies. It is divided by the lessons that the students should. For example, in our creative writing syllabus, we have 3 learning competencies for our first lesson: the nature of creative writing. Those are differentiate imaginative writing from other forms of writing, call creative ideas from experiences, create sentences that utilize sensory image. Next lesson is the language used in creative writing. We have the learning competencies: discuss and explain the different figures of speech, discuss how diction is used in creative writing, summarize learning by making an infographic regarding figures of speech. For the lesson fiction, we can discuss and explain what fiction is, identify the various elements, techniques, and literary devices in fiction, discuss and explain the different types of characters, and discuss and explain different point of views in. But that lesson in fiction is specific to characters and point For the next lesson, the continuation of fiction, the elements of plot, setting, and theme. Discuss and explain the different elements of fiction. Explain the different types of plots. Utilize the different elements of fiction in creating a short paragraph. Then in our syllabus, we have again the continuation of fiction, the element of conflict and irony. We have the learning competencies, discuss and explain conflict and irony, and identify different types of conflicts and irony. And for the next lesson, poetry, we have the learning competencies, discuss and explain what poetry is, identify different elements of poetry. We can also have the continuation of poetry in our syllabus, which is the different types of poetry. We can have the learning competencies, discuss the different types of poetry, and create original poems. The next lesson is drama. In our lesson, we will discuss what is drama and elements of drama. Our learning competencies will be discuss and explain what a drama is, explain the different elements of drama, create an analysis on a. Our next lesson will be non-fiction. Our discussion will be what is creative fiction is, and our learning competencies will be explain and discuss what a creative non-fiction is, differentiate creative non-fiction with creative fiction. Our next lesson will be literary journalism. Our discussion could be what is literary journalism and writing a literary journalistic essay. Our competencies will be explain and discuss what literary journalism is, write a literary journalistic essay. For our next lesson, travel writing, we have in our discussion what is travel writing is, and our learning competencies could be explain and discuss what travel writing is, write a travel article. For our next lesson, personal essay, we can discuss what is a personal essay is and the formal essay, definitions, and subjects for personal essay. Learning competencies are explain and discuss what a personal essay is, differentiate personal essay with formal essay, and write an original personal essay. We can also have a lesson writing a life story in our syllabus. The discussion is about biography and autobiography and memoria. A learning competencies could be differentiate biography with autobiography and memoir. For our next lesson in our syllabus, we have the continuation of writing a life story. The discussion will be how to write an autobiography, how to write a memoir, how to write a biography. Learning competencies are identify the steps in writing a biography, memoir, and autobiography, and write a part of student's own autobiography. And our last lesson in our syllabus is creative writing tips. The discussion is about tips for creative writing, and our learning competency is demonstrate an understanding of the creative writing process. As you can see in our examples, learning competencies are the knowledge, skills that the student should have learned after every lesson, like to write, explain, or demonstrate certain skills in order the teacher to know if his or her students really learned in her lesson.
Now, we are going to look into language curriculum, but first, let me give you just a quick definition of it. A language-based curriculum provides well-planned content information that is strategically presented to facilitate learning and enrich the language experiences of the students across all subject areas. So basically, it is a curriculum to enrich students' language skills and experiences. Reading and writing is obviously a part of language learning, So here is an example of the subject reading and writing skills for grades 11 and 12 under language curriculum. The first column, which is the content, consists of the first parts of the lesson. In the content, you will just write down the lessons that will be tackled as you go along with the class for the whole semester. The content is composed of the main topic, which in this example is reading and thinking strategies across text types, which is followed by the subtopics text as connected discourse, techniques in selecting and organizing information, patterns of development, and properties of a well-written text. The second column is the content standard. Again, content standard is composed of what the students should learn for that whole topic. So in this example, the students should know and understand that information in a written text may be selected and organized to achieve a particular purpose. If we analyze the given statement, it only includes what the students should know, since content standard is focused on the knowledge and understanding, which are all cognitive. Meaning, content standards first look into the content and asks, what are the essential knowledge that the students should learn from this lesson that will truly improve their language learning? On the third column is the performance standard. As we see in this example, the performance standard is to critique a chosen sample of each pattern of development, focusing on information selection, organization, and development. We will notice that performance standard is very parallel to content standard. If content standard is all about the knowledge, performance standard then is all about the skills that the learners are expected to demonstrate. What I mean is performance standard first analyzes the content standard and asks, what skills should the students demonstrate after and while gaining the knowledge that they need? Or, what do they need to do to help them demonstrate and make use of what they have learned? The fourth column is composed of learning competencies. Learning competencies are the most specific because they are what are expected at the end of every lesson or activity, and they clearly state what the students should know and do. Let's take a look at the learning competency in this example. First, the learner describes a written text as connected discourse, distinguishes between and among techniques in selecting and organizing information through brainstorming list, graphic organizer, topic outline, and sentence outline, distinguishes between and among patterns of development and writing across disciplines, narration, description, definition, exemplification or classification, comparison and contrast, cause and effect, problem solution, and persuasion. And the last competency is to identify properties of a well-written text through following the standards: organization, coherence and cohesion, language use, and mechanics. Learning competencies are the knowledge and skills. They are very clear and detailed. They state what the students should accomplish and how they would be accomplishing them. So after every lesson or activity, the teacher should make sure that each of the students accomplished every learning competency, since it is similar to learning objectives or learning outcomes.
For the continuation of the table, here is Reading and Writing Skills section 11.2. As you can see here is that there are 5 columns in the table, and the first column falls within the content. RWS section 11.2 has the main content of text and context connections, which is about critical reading. It is subdivided into 2 parts. The first part is critical reading as looking for ways of thinking. Under this are explicit and implicit claims in a text as well as context of text development. The second part is critical reading as reasoning, wherein under this are formulating evaluative statements and determining textual evidence. In the next column, you can see the content standard, which is based on what our content is all about. And in this topic, the content standards specify that learners should understand the relationship of a written text and the context in which it was developed. The third column shows the performance standard of the lesson, and in line with what the content standard specified, the performance standard will be to write a 1,000-word critique of a selected text on the basis of its claim or claims, context, and properties as a written material. So as you can see in the fourth column, plays are the learning competencies that are expected to be done in every lesson or activity. The curriculum is looking forward that the students will be able to successfully accomplish the 6 learning competencies, and those are: first, to explain critical reading as looking for ways of thinking; second, to identify claims explicitly or implicitly made in a written text, including claim of fact, claim of policy, and claim of value; third, to identify the context in which a text was developed, including hypertext and intertext; fourth, to explain critical reading as reasoning; fifth, to formulate evaluative statements about a text read, which is to formulate assertions about the content and properties of a text read, and to formulate meaningful counterclaims in response to claims made in a text read. And the last learning competency for lesson 11.2 is to determine textual evidence to validate assertions and counterclaims made about a text read. The learning competencies will be done depending on the subdivision of the table, which is indicated by the codes placed in the 5th column of the table. The codes that you can see are the representation of the topic that will be discussed under the section 11.2 of the subject curriculum.
Next is the content, teaching totality of what to be taught in a school. It consists of important facts, principles, and concepts to be taught. It can be in form of knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values that learners are exposed to. Next is the content standard. It is the breadth and depth of valued knowledge that students are expected to learn. It is not just simply a list of important knowledge and skills. It provides a coherent structure to guide curriculum and instruction. The third one is the performance standards. It is described as accomplishment, not activities. It captures what, how, and why. It utilizes SMART goals where possible. The fourth one is the learning competencies. Learning competencies, it is the ideas or skills that student is expected to master. It is the goals of student to learn. One is the code. Since the learning objectives or competencies can be generalized, the department has put in learning code to decongest the said objective or make the said objective specific. The code it refers on how many days you will teach the said learning competencies. We need to divide the component or topic into learning components. Continuation of the content in reading and writing skills 11.3, it has the content of purposeful writing in the disciplines and for profession. The content standard is to understand the requirements of composing academic writing and professional correspondence. The performance standard that each students need to accomplish is to assess each type of academic writing and professional correspondence following the properties of well-written text and process approach to writing. The learning competencies is to explain how one's purpose is a crucial consideration in academic and professional writing, and is to identify the unique features of and requirements in composing the text that are useful across discipline like book review or article critique, literature review, report, project proposal, and position paper. Third one is to identify the unique features and requirements in composing professional correspondence like resume, application for college admission, application for employment, and various forms of office correspondence. For the code, it indicates for how long the teachers will teach the student and the resources that each student will be used.
You got me feeling like a